Welcome back to another episode of the Tracy Take. Today, we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons, the number one team, in my head at least. But before we get into that, please hit that subscribe bell and also like and share this video so your other friends and family members can see what we have to say. Ryan, as a Falcons fan, I'm glad we're in the NFC because there's an outside shot. I think we could potentially make the playoffs as a wild card team while also kind of going through this weird pseudo
Mhm.
rebuild that we're doing. But that being said, I think we got rid of all the old, and we're going to get into that in a second. With the exception of Matt Ryan, and brought in some really neat young pieces, and I think it's going to be an exciting future. But we'll love to hear kind of your take on the overall offseason so far for Atlanta.
Yeah, and they are completely done with Dan Quinn, and they're going to start a whole new regime. To me, their biggest addition this offseason was Arthur Smith,
Mm-hmm.
and Dan Pease. I think that's a big one.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
but Kyle Pitts is huge. Adding Mike Davis is, while he's not Derrick Henry, he runs in a similar style, and so I think that will allow Arthur Smith to kind of build that offense the way he wants to and run it the way he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And then they added guys like Cordero Patterson, Duron Harmon, Eric Harris, and then another big one in my eyes was Richie Grant through the draft. And so
Yep.
I think the Falcons are on the right track. And like you said, kind of in the beginning, I think that they're on the way to be competing for a wild card. If they're not there this year, then they probably will be next year. And that
Mm-hmm.
also totally depends on the division outlook in 2022. But I think the Falcons are looking pretty good. I think that they have the most hope at the coaching position that they've
Mm-hmm.
had. I mean, since they made the Super Bowl in 2016.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Supposedly, when Arthur Smith was hired, he was supposedly the catch of all the coaching
mhm.
availabilities and coaching candidates. He
Yeah,
was the one, and if you look at how he kind of transformed that Titans offense into what it was, and there's a
yeah,
lot of analysis that goes on into how he schemed guys open. And I think if he can transfer that here to that Falcons offense, which has all the elite weapons, Calvin Ridley had over 1,300 yards last year. Russell Gage is a promising receiver too. Kyle Pitts is
mhm.
obviously has a lot of hype with him and has a lot of the clear talent that he showed in Florida that should be able to translate into the NFL. I mean, he's just going to be a nightmare
Yeah,
matchup for a lot of these defensive coordinators. Um, and
yeah,
so, and that's where in the passing game, and hopefully that helps open up the run game because one of the I would say the question marks for the Falcons offense is going to be their offensive line. They have a couple of
yeah,
set pieces already. You have Jake Matthews at left tackle and Chris Lindstrom at right guard. He was one of the better guards of last year. And same with Jake
yeah,
Matthews at tackle. But they just
yeah,
also have still a couple of young pieces that are going to be coming in. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Arthur Smith kind of recreates this offense. Hopefully, kind of gets it back to what Kyle Shanahan had it when they went on that Super Bowl run, where I
yeah,
think you had Matt Ryan throw touchdowns to 13 different guys that season, and
yeah,
just getting guys open and just really making very easy decisions for Matt Ryan in the
yeah.
QB pocket.
Yeah, no, and I definitely think that Arthur Smith can get them back to that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's just going to be like a completely different way of going about things. Because for me, that Kyle Shanahan offense is flashy, a lot of misdirection, and uh, like a lot of like deep throws and just a lot of throwing. I mean, d- too much in the Super Bowl, especially. But
Yes.
I think this is going to be a run first. Like they're going to be a very balanced offense. I think Mike Davis is going to be a running back two in fantasy, just because I think he's going to get 15 to 20 touches a game.
There's not really anyone else on the depth chart.
Yeah,
I mean, they do have Cordell Patterson that could play in the backfield. He might be
yeah,
more receiver kick return type guy. But
mhm,
then the next guy is I think Kadre Olson, who is
yeah,
I think he was fourth in the depth chart last year, and maybe only had maybe 50 rushing yards, maybe 100 or something like that, because the Falcons
yeah,
lost Todd Gurley, Brian Hill, and Ito Smith all in the free agency. And they really kind of had to let all those guys go just because of
yeah,
how hamstrung they were to the cap. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think Mike Davis is going to have a solid year. He had a pretty solid production with the time with Carolina with Christian McCaffrey being out. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. Mike Davis and I've been I've said this with the beaten drum on essentially every team that has a weak offensive line. Is the running backs really only going to be as good as that offensive line? If you
Yeah.
have a bad offensive line, your running
Mhm.
game's not going to be that good. And ironically,
Yeah.
so I'm
And
watching the
and
Hall of Fame game right now. It's Najee
I
Harris seems fine against this weak Cowboys defense, but
yeah.
it also is
And
just
that's
preseason.
that's one of the things too that like I think the Falcons offensive line will be better. Uh One, they allowed way too many sacks last year. They allowed 41 total sacks.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that was kind of due to schemes by Dirk Cutter that just weren't really working. And then I also think Arthur Smith would do a better job of keeping a defense on their toes and not just letting people pin their ears back and come after Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
But also too, they have a lot of competition. Like you said, they have a lot of young guys coming in. Matt Gano, Jalen Mayfield, Josh Andrews, all are going to be competing for offensive line spots, and I think that will only competition breeds success. And
mm-hmm.
so I think that's definitely probably the best thing they can do for that offensive line right now, and
Yeah,
then maybe address it this upcoming offseason by signing a few players or drafting a few more guys in the first round. I do kind of
yeah,
want to move on to the defensive side of the ball here for a second.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
actually think the Falcons' secondary will be very much improved. I think Richie Grant will come in and probably be a starter right away. AJ Terrell was a top corner, a top rookie corner last year, and I think he'll only improve. And then actually, I was kind of impressed to see the talent at the linebacking position, specifically Deion Jones, because as
Yeah,
not a Falcons fan, I was actually thought the Falcons linebackers were not very good, but Deion Jones was, I think, ranked like number 7 or 8 among linebackers in the NFL last year. And so that
yeah,
was something to me that was slightly impressive. They still are weaker up front, but they do have a Pro Bowler, Grady Jarrett, that can kind of carry some of that load. So we'll
yeah.
just kind of have to see.
Yeah, so when really kind of doing the research here, this just how this defense is right now really reminds me of the Cowboys. They have a
Hmm.
new defensive coordinator who is highly regarded in Dan Pease, similar to the Cowboys with Dan
Hmm.
Quinn as their new defensive coordinator. And then they have a couple of set locked pieces in each line. Grady Jarrett, a D line, Deion Jones, and linebacker, and then in secondary, AJ Terrell is a clear CB1. But then they got a lot of other guys that are really good that can come in and start. Just got to try and find the right pieces, and that's I think this Falcons defense is going to improve tremendously this year. They were 28th in 2020 last year, and so. But yeah, the linebacker course specifically, Mikael Walker had a very successful, I would say, rookie year, and he's projected to be the starter. And then on the outside,
Hmm.
and then on the opposite side of him, I'm going to butcher this name, and I apologize, but Fosaid Olakun. So I apologize. I'm horrible with names, but also had a very solid linebacking year last year with 3 sacks, 2 picks, and 117 tackles, actually leading the Falcons in tackles last year. So the linebacking core is actually set pretty well.
Yeah.
And then with Grady Jarrett up front, they're hoping that Dante Fowler Jr. picks up the pace a little bit. They did bring on uh, uh, Stephen Means was the guy that was a kind of unexpected,
Hmm.
pretty positive mark on the defensive end. Hopefully,
Yeah.
he can continue that trend. So,
Hmm.
but it'll just have to see. I feel like the way Falcons are going to win games is they're going to be outscoring points. The defense is going to be holding on, especially at least to start the year. But uh, it should be some exciting stuff. I think kind of moving on into the projections for their schedule. I, I would put them probably at the ceiling, maybe 10-7, but I would put their
Yeah.
floor at 7-10. They have a fairly
Yeah.
easy schedule. They're playing a lot of the weaker teams. It helps us they finish last, but also they are playing the AFC South, which is going to have the Texans and the no, sorry, the
Hmm.
AFC East because they're playing the Jags. With the additional game, but the AFC
Yeah.
East, they're going to play in the Jets, I think that's a potential win. That game's in London. Miami, also some potential there to see how they rebound. Bills and Patriots will be tough. But then inside
Yeah.
their division, they competed with the Buccaneers last year. Like that's the one thing that a lot of people who weren't watching the Falcons would say, like, time for rebuild. They got to get rid of Matt Ryan. They got to do all that stuff. And I do think that they need to add some pieces,
Yeah.
and will continue to keep adding pieces. But in one possession games last year, they were 0-8. And three of
Yeah.
those games, I believe they had a 99.9% chance to win, and somehow lost. So
Mhm.
the team isn't as far off, I think, as people believe they are. So
Yeah. No,
and
I
that's one
definitely.
thing. I think some of these changes, some of these coaching changes, I think might help, because a lot of those, when I see those stats, um, to me, that those are coaching errors and game management errors. Specifically, the
Mhm.
Cowboys in mind. They allow that onside. They're up 9 with 45 seconds left, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they scored 10 points. So or they
Mhm.
allow 10 points to be scored. So for me, that's just going to be, I think, the biggest thing to watch this year is just the coaching changes, and how Arthur Smith and Dean Pease kind of manage the game
Yeah.
from the sidelines.
And they do have a fairly easy schedule, especially at the end and beginning. The beginning mostly. I think that they probably start out 4-1, but then they have an early bye week in week 6, and they go to Miami, which is winnable but still tough. And then they have a stretch there where they play New England, and then they play Tampa Bay at home, and then they have to go to Carolina and then to San Francisco. And so for
Hmm.
me, I think they will probably come out of that 10 to 15 range, uh, probably 4-2 to 3-3. I think, and I think that's where a lot of their most of their struggles will come with. And then even then it looks like week 17, they play the Bills at Buffalo, which is, sorry to
Yeah,
say, probably a guaranteed loss.
yeah, that's
Uh,
going to be a cold one, unless they move to
yeah,
Austin, Texas, like how some
yeah.
projections are saying. But I don't think
But
that's going to happen this year.
overall, I think that the Atlanta Falcons have a positive outlook on 2021, but I think 2022 will really be a year where they can probably excel a lot more and get some of that development uh, under
Hmm.
them and really move forward and kind of play a lot better football. So
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a fun season to watch. It's going to be very optimistic, I think. Um, And it's going to be interesting to see how Kyle Pitts develops, really see how this defense
mhm.
develops, because this defense isn't really that old. There's still a lot of young pieces. I think Grady Jarrett and Deion Jones, they were both a part of that Super Bowl run. So they're solid veterans that
Mhm.
are entering the prime of their careers. So
Yeah.
it's going to be fun to watch, and hopefully we have a winning season.
Yeah. All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Tracy Take. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know how we did, and if you guys liked what we said, go ahead and tell us. And if you disliked, go ahead and tell us too. All right, thank you.